thrown into one of the UK's most violent prisons. Cain arrived as just another nobody in a cage full of predators. From the moment he stepped inside, they came at him, punches to the face. Scalding coffee splashed across his skin. The beating didn't stop until teeth cracked out of his mouth and hit the concrete. But what the inmates didn't realize was that Cain wasn't weak. Once upon a time, he broke bones for cash. And inside these walls, they didn't destroy him. They created something far worse. They turned Cain into a merciless psychopath. Years earlier, Cain had been nothing more than a struggling boxer, desperate for a fresh start. He turned to his brother Lincoln for help. Lincoln agreed, but only if Cain pulled off a job for him. Cain accepted, not knowing the cost. His task seemed simple: snatch a plastic bag from a poor woman. But the woman fought for it with her life, chasing him through the streets until she was struck by a car. Horrified, Cain froze, only to be arrested on the spot. That's when Detective O'Hara stepped in. For years, he had been hunting Lincoln, who secretly ran a brutal loan-sharking empire. O'Hara offered Cain a way out, betray his brother. But Cain's loyalty ran deep. He stayed silent even after being beaten half to death by Sergeant Evans, a corrupt cop who extracted confessions with his fists. His silence earned him a ticket to Belmarsh Prison, nicknamed the Meat Grinder. No record, no allies, no mercy. From day one, Cain was attacked without warning, forced into savage fights that left him bloodied and toothless. But even after they smashed out his front teeth, Cain found power in his new metal dentures, a monstrous grin that made him look like the predator they feared. When his mother visited, she delivered the final blow. Lincoln blamed Cain for everything and wanted nothing to do with him. No calls, no letters, nothing. Cain was utterly abandoned. Alone, he trained his body into a weapon, preparing for the endless ambushes that awaited him every time he set foot in the yard. Then came the cruelest revelation. One of his beaten attackers confessed that Lincoln had placed a 20,000-pound bounty on his head. Every punch, every ambush, every attempt on his life had been ordered by his own brother. From that moment, Cain's purpose shifted. Survival wasn't enough anymore. His rage, his thirst for vengeance, became the only thing keeping him alive. And in the meat grinder, with every scar and every fight, Cain was no longer just another prisoner. He was becoming the monster they had made. The inmates would stop at nothing to kill Cain. They even crafted a homemade version of napalm, setting his face ablaze and leaving him partially disfigured. Piece by piece, Cain was losing whatever humanity he had left. He wasn't a man anymore. He was becoming a monster, a predator fueled by survival and bloodlust. Mercy no longer existed in his world. Not even the guards were safe, and many of them ended up in the infirmary after crossing his path. 3 years into his sentence, Cain's mother visited him with devastating news. She had pancreatic cancer, and her time was running out. Crushed, Cain wanted to tell her the truth about Lincoln's betrayal, but he couldn't bring himself to shatter her heart. She was the only family he had left. As her condition worsened, Cain was hospitalized after yet another brutal fight. That's where Detective O'Hara appeared, revealing a dark truth. Sergeant Evans, the same corrupt cop who had once tortured Cain, was secretly working for Lincoln, feeding him information from the inside. O'Hara had Evans fired, but warned Cain that Lincoln still wanted him dead. For the first time, Cain agreed to cooperate. He would give O'Hara what he wanted in exchange for one last chance to see his dying mother. But fate was merciless. Escorted under heavy security to her hospital bed, Cain arrived only moments too late. She had already passed. Standing over her lifeless body, Cain broke. Then, inside the elevator, his grief exploded into violence. He turned on his guards with terrifying speed and brutality, knocking them unconscious and sending them crashing through the elevator floor before making a daring escape through the hospital's back exit. Free once again, Cain drifted into a private bar. The bouncers tried to stop him, but he dismantled them with ease and walked inside. At the counter, he ordered a tall beer from Bez, the sharp-tongued bartender, and quietly listened in on a gang's conversation nearby. They spoke of recent chaos. Their drug business slowed, their accountant missing, and their friend Rook butchered by a faceless killer. Tun, one of the gang members, recalled the night it happened. Rook had confronted a shadowy figure watching them from the dark, but instead of answers, he got an axe to the arm, severing it in a spray of blood. Tun claimed he had chased the killer off in fear. Cain couldn't hold back his laughter. He mocked Tun, accusing him of being the coward who actually ran when Rook was slaughtered. Tun's face turned red with rage, and the whole gang prepared for a fight. But when Cain finally admitted the truth, that he was the very killer they feared, everything changed. The gang froze in terror. Bez, horrified, screamed at Cain to get out of her bar. And with that, the monster walked back into the night. The bouncers, barely back on their feet, storm into the bar, looking for payback. But Cain wastes no time. Within seconds, he knocks them down again, this time pulling out a double-barreled shotgun to remind everyone just how lethal he truly is. In an instant, the room is his. He takes control of the gang, demanding the location of their boss, Lincoln, a ruthless loan shark, a corrupt businessman, and Cain's own brother. Instead of Lincoln, he gets Hyde, Lincoln's right-hand man. Hyde wastes no time mocking Cain, taunting his scarred face and ridiculing the years he spent locked up. His words drip with arrogance, but Cain cuts the room to silence when a bouncer tries to jump him and catches a shotgun blast to the kneecap. The man's screams echo across the bar until Cain silences him with a brutal kick to the face. Even then, Hyde doubts Cain's claim of being Rook's killer until Cain throws a plastic bag onto the table. Inside it, Rook's severed hand. The sight erases any doubt. They now know the truth. Cain is a cold-blooded killer. And with a shotgun in his hands, resistance isn't an option. After savagely beating Hyde, Cain forces him to call Lincoln. Moments later, Lincoln walks in with 3 men at his side, shocked to see his brother alive and armed. Cain, fueled by rage, disarms them effortlessly and demands an explanation. Why had his own blood put a price on his head? Lincoln tries to play the Blood Brothers card, but eventually admits the betrayal. He claims one of his spies told him Cain was planning to snitch. But Cain already knows the truth. Lincoln trusted Evans, the corrupt cop, and Cain reveals that Evans isn't alive anymore. After finding him at his new workplace, Cain crushed his skull with a hammer. For a moment, Lincoln seems impressed. He promises Cain a fresh start, a new life, but Cain doesn't buy it. Instead, he turns to Hyde, then pulls the trigger. Hyde's skull explodes in front of everyone, sending shockwaves of horror through the gang. Lincoln reels from the loss of his most loyal ally, only to face another blow. Cain had already stripped him of everything. The millions Lincoln made through his loan sharking empire, gone. Cain forced Oakes, another of Lincoln's men, to hand over his $2.2 million and donate it to the families who had been ruined by Lincoln's schemes. Now, Lincoln has nothing left but his gang. Outnumbered, Lincoln smirks, thinking Cain won't make it out alive. 10 men against 1, and Cain has only 2 bullets left. But Cain calmly tells him, "I only need 1, and it's for you." As Lincoln distracts him with taunts, Bez, the bartender, smashes a bottle across Cain's head. The gang lunges. Cain fires a shotgun blast into one gangster's chest, but the others swarm him, finally managing to disarm him. Desperate, they hurl bottles and glasses at him, while Bez arms them with a bag full of iron rods, hammers, and knives. The bar erupts into chaos, and Cain, outnumbered, outgunned, and bloodied, faces the fight of his life. But even armed with hammers, knives, and iron bars, the gang never stood a chance. Cain tore through them mercilessly, his body unbreakable, and his rage unstoppable. One after another, they fell, bones shattered, skulls crushed. Tun, as usual, tried to flee, only to return with a submachine gun. Yet, in a cruel twist of fate, every bullet missed Cain. Worse, Tun accidentally mowed down one of his own men. Cain snatched the weapon from his trembling hands and unleashed hell, mowing down several more in seconds. The survivors tried everything, kicks, blades, fists, but Cain was a storm of violence. One thug had his arm snapped in half before Cain slammed his skull into the floor. Another had his throat ripped open in a vampire-like bite, and one unlucky soul was stabbed again and again until he choked on his own blood. When the blood settled, only 3 remained: Cain, Bez, and Lincoln. Lincoln leveled a shotgun at his brother, spitting venom as he confessed the truth. It was never about snitching. He put the bounty on Cain simply because Cain's very existence threatened his reputation among the criminal elite. With a sneer, Lincoln pulled the trigger, only to hear the hollow click of an empty chamber. Cain smirked. He had known all along. Lincoln, humiliated and desperate, lunged at him with a knife handed over by Bez. The brothers locked in a primal struggle, steel against flesh, hatred against blood. In the end, Cain drove the blade into Lincoln, ending years of betrayal with one final strike. Bez trembled, clutching the bar she once ruled, surrounded by the corpses of men she had served all her life. Cain spared her. He had no interest in killing a woman, even one who had tried to end him. In the aftermath, one of Lincoln's victims checked his bank account in disbelief. Millions restored. A sliver of justice returned. Cain's rampage hadn't just satisfied his thirst for vengeance. It had undone some of his brother's crimes. Detective O'Hara, too, gained closure, watching Lincoln's empire finally collapse. And Cain, for the first time, he allowed himself a flicker of satisfaction. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more intense movie breakdowns. Got a film you'd like to see next? Drop it in the comments. We're always watching. Until next time, stay tuned.